All right, so welcome to this week's edition of Military Trailblazers Office Hour. Thank you for taking time out of your Wednesday evening to spend it here in the spirit of community mentorship and learning. I'm your host tonight, David Albright. I'm a lead solution engineer here at Salesforce and a military trailblazer. Each week, we invite a co-host or co-host to take part in the conversation so we can leverage their experience, expertise, and unique perspectives. Tonight's session is another in our ongoing series of partner spotlights, where we'll be exploring Salesforce career paths at Booz Allen. So if you ever wondered what it's like to work at a large consulting firm, how their culture compares to smaller boutique firms, or the next steps for pursuing a career there, this is a session for you. And special thank you to Karri Webster for proposing this session and putting it together. First, let me stop presenting here and get everyone on screen. And I'd like to quickly welcome and briefly introduce our co-host panel for tonight's session: Erica Arguello, Adam Beard, Pedro Colón, Elisa Malmanger, Alex Sutherland, and Karri Webster. Erica is a principal at Booz Allen, focusing on health accounts within their Salesforce practice. She began her tech career as a communications officer in the Air Force, later moving to director roles at both USAA and then Liberty IT Solutions. Adam is a 7X certified developer and release manager at Booz Allen. He served in the Navy as a hospital corpsman before learning to code and transitioning to Liberty IT Solutions as a developer. Pedro is a 4X certified senior Salesforce consultant at Booz Allen. He served in the Air Force for over 25 years before moving to tech. Pedro also worked at Liberty IT Solutions as a solution engineer. Lisa is a 12X certified senior solution architect at Booz Allen. She served in the Army as an IT specialist and continued her tech career working as a business analyst, software engineer, and engagement manager before Booz Allen. Alex is also a principal at Booz Allen, leading their technical architects and technologists. He served in the Air National Guard, the Air Force, and the Reserves, in addition to numerous roles in the tech industry spanning a career of more than 20 years. And finally, Karri is a Salesforce solution engineer at Booz Allen, a military spouse and advocate, and the data analytics manager for Military Trailblazer office hours. She leveraged the Hiring Our Heroes Salesforce Fellowship and the Talent Stacker program to make the move to Salesforce Ecosystem. So it's great having you all as co-hosting office hours with me tonight. Welcome for our time. At this point, we typically invite our co-hosts to share their Salesforce stories. Instead, we'll be touching on them throughout tonight's session to ensure we make time for everyone's questions. For those joining for the first time, I always like to briefly explain the purpose of these office hours before we open the floor for questions and discussion. These sessions are an informal get-together for gathering with military trailblazers and allies to explore non-technical Salesforce career and branding-related topics to help you achieve your professional development and career-related goals. The next hour is intended to be an opportunity for collaborative mentorship. Everyone on the call is encouraged to step up and help answer questions from your perspective, which provide additional diversity of experience to the answers given. Please keep an eye on the chat window during tonight's session. I and others on this call share a lot of great information there, including learning, networking, and employment opportunities. If you'd like to ask a question at any point during today's session, please feel free to do so. If you don't feel as comfortable speaking up, you can also post your questions in chat. I'll do my best to monitor the chat window and also be looking for raised hands. And finally, tonight's session is being recorded. If you'd like to share an attribution-free comment, please let me know before speaking, and I'll make sure it's edited out of the final recording. So with that, I'm going to let the co-hosts all introduce themselves, kind of walk through a little bit of the roles, responsibilities, activities, and then we're going to go flip back and kind of quickly talk about how the partners fit together into the ecosystem. Because I think a lot of people, myself included, when I started working on an SI team doing consulting, I really had no idea how the whole system kind of worked strategically. So we'll hit that. Alex, if you kick us off, that would be great. And then we'll kind of move around. That works for everyone.
Certainly. Thanks, David. Appreciate the opportunity for our team to join you all today. And so I've been in the Salesforce ecosystem for coming up on 18 years now. Started off as an accidental admin and kind of bumbled my way into architect, and now leading architects here at Booz Allen. So it's been a really awesome journey. And also, as you mentioned, 22 years and counting in the Air Force Reserve components. And now it's great to have those two distinct parts of my life kind of intersecting in the past few years working in the federal public sector, particularly here at Booz Allen. So yeah, so that's a quick intro for myself. And if my counterpart Erica looks like she's here. Go take it away, Erica.
Hi, everyone. I'm Erica Arguello. I have been a part of Booz Allen for almost 2 years now. Obviously, I was a little part of Liberty for a part of that as well. So 2 years total with them. And prior to that, I was at USAA, which is where I began my Salesforce journey. So I've been working with and being a part of the Salesforce ecosystem for probably 6-8 years. I'm a little neglectful in my certifications. Alex is definitely helping me with that journey. I will check that box. That's my goal for this year. I'm happy to be a part of the whole Salesforce community. It's something that I've become passionate about since I began at USAA, and that's what led me to Liberty/Booz Allen. And we have about 200 plus Salesforce team members here and growing. We support many projects that support our veterans, which I'm one of those. So very happy to be a part of Booz Allen and the projects that we support and lead and are putting out there to support our veterans. So thank you to all of you for having me here, and I can't wait to tell you more.
Thank you, Erica. Adam, how about you?
Good afternoon. My name is Adam Beard, and I think I am one of the more junior ones. I've been in the Salesforce ecosystem for like a year and a week at this point. Before then, I was in active duty in the Navy as a corpsman. I worked with the Marines, and I accidentally fell into Salesforce. Originally, I applied at Liberty as a Java developer, and they talked me into Salesforce, and I took off running, and I latched onto it, and I love it. And that led me to where I am today.
Thank you. Pedro.
Hi, everybody. My name is Pedro, and I discovered Salesforce about 4 years ago. Actually, it was before that. It was probably 2017, but learned about Salesforce through a veteran newsletter that I subscribed to. Didn't pay much attention to it because I thought it was probably another sales training course or something like that. And me being a prior military recruiter, that was the last thing I needed to learn. So, but it intrigued me. A couple of years later, back in 2019, I started looking into it more, and I realized it was something totally different and something that I found really intriguing. And that's when I started to learn Salesforce and Trailhead. Had the opportunity in 2019 to go to Dreamforce, my first Dreamforce, and met a lot of wonderful military trailblazers there that encouraged me and told me about other programs that I could take advantage of, like Merivis and stuff like that. So got my admin certification back in 2020. Later that year, I was part of the first Hiring Our Heroes Salesforce cohort, and started working at Liberty. March 1st would be 2 years that I started working at Liberty and made the transition over to Booz last year. That's pretty much it.
Thank you. Lisa.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Lisa Malmanger, and I have been part of the Salesforce ecosystem since 2011. And similar to Alex, I am an accidental admin, and now I'm a solution architect at Booz Allen. I've been with Booz Allen for about a year. And in my spare time, I do love to volunteer with Merivis, and I see some of my Merivis mentees on this call and Trailblazer mentorship mentees on this call. So thanks for joining, and I'm excited to be on this panel today. Thank you.
We're excited to have you. And last but not least, Karri.
Hi, thank you first for having all of us. This is pretty exciting to be here. I guess Salesforce journey really started back in 2007, which was kind of crazy. That's where I was first introduced to Salesforce as a marketing coordinator in the Seattle area. And our family grew really fast, and it just wasn't time, but I knew I really liked Salesforce. So fast forward, like way forward, just the last couple of years, I knew that's where I wanted to be. So I started diving in, and between HOH and also the SFA Academy, I made my way into Booz Allen. And my role, I'm a junior solution engineer. And I'm on my first billable project, which is pretty exciting, but it's actually as a junior project manager. And you can kind of see, and maybe we'll go through how that works, because there's definitely different roles you can play within a larger firm. There's a lot of opportunities there. So thank you so much for having us.
Perfect. Thank you all. So as I said, I'm going to talk very quickly. I'm going to take about 3 to 4 minutes to explain how the partners work into the ecosystem. Because like I said, when I started in Salesforce about 3 years ago, I started as a 1099. You guys can look me up on LinkedIn, and then I worked for one of the partners, and I had no idea how it all worked together. And even when I got to Salesforce, I didn't quite understand how it all fit. And so very quickly, in 3 minutes or less, from the strategic 30,000-foot view, let me explain how it kind of works. So I thought Salesforce did everything. I thought the mothership was just like, oh, they do everything. And it really doesn't. Salesforce is in charge of basically building and managing the products, right? And so there's really kind of, at a strategic level, like 4 pillars within Salesforce. There's the engineering and product side, which is really focused on the clouds and talking to customers and seeing what they want, and then putting those clouds out. There's a pre-sale side, which is kind of what Dave Nava and I do, which is talking to customers and figuring out if it's which product would work, which cloud would work for their use case, and kind of help them solve. And then once you get to the sale, things kind of go to the post-sale side, the delivery side, which you usually look at customer support. So making sure the customer is getting the most out of the product and they're using the licenses to the maximum effort, making sure they're going to kind of look at renewing the licenses, right? If you look at the licensing model. And then there's a delivery side. And Salesforce has a little bit of pro services, professional services, which helps with delivery. But if you think of it like a car, you can get your oil changed at the dealership that you bought the car from, but it's probably going to be well done, but it might be a little more expensive than if you just go down the street and find someone else, right? And so that's a lot of times our pro services for very technical applications or very large accounts. So once Dave and I kind of work that pre-sale, who builds these implementations? And that's where the partner ecosystem comes in. And these partners are integral to the whole process, right? Somebody has to build out and specialize in it. And a lot of times the partners tend to specialize in certain vertical spaces, for instance, defense, health, finance, things like that, where there's specialized knowledge or implementation to that product. And so that's where a lot of times when you hear the admin route or the consulting route, you get on with one of the consulting firms and you kind of fit in there. Dave and I kind of, I think, lean towards a lot of consulting if you're going to enter the ecosystem. Not that there's a right or wrong way, but you get a lot of experience very quickly. You are drinking from the fire hose when you're consulting because there's just so much going on. And so that gives you an idea of how this fits. And then you have different sizes, as we mentioned, like the boutique smaller firms, or you get some of what we call the bigs, right? The Booz, the AFS, a couple others that I can think of, IBM, who are really, really big, lots of people on the bench, can handle very big projects. And so that is how that all works out. And so we've got Booz tonight, which is really good to talk about. A lot of experience, well known in the ecosystem. So that gives everyone a big idea of how this all fits together. So hopefully that helps. All of our co-hosts tonight have a military service background. I'd like to hear from each of you. I'll probably put it out there and float it. How your experience with the military helped prepare you for a career in tech, specifically which skill sets and habits enabled your success. And Karri, I want to hear yours too, because I love reading your LinkedIn. A lot of times about, the military spouse, right? Everyone looks at the military member, but it's the spouse sometimes that really has to deal with it. So I'll float that out there. I'd like to hear how everyone's military experience kind of help prepare them for this transition.
I can start it off, David.
Go ahead, Lisa.
Okay. Well, some of the skill sets that military does bring to the table that maybe others do not is teamwork, which is pretty much a requirement in the military service. You got to be able to work with a team and listen to each other. Communication, adaptability, that's another one. Military members and spouses, they have to learn to adapt very quickly. PCSing maybe every year, every couple years, learning a new area, learning, putting their kids in new schools. So that's a big one. Communication is pretty obvious. I think that's across the board for anything. Everybody needs to have good communication skills. And sometimes, like for myself, being an introvert, it can be quite difficult to communicate, but there are ways around that. Another thing that, military brings to the table is attention to detail. So I think that helps me with my job because I can think of things that maybe other people can't because we're so used to, having our uniforms pressed and making sure everything looks great. I still do my hangers with the finger check. I don't know if that'll ever go away, but that's a good skill to have too. I don't know, Pedro, if you have anything to contribute. I know you and I have talked about it before.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I still check my gig line. No, I'm just kidding. Communication for me, absolutely. I mentioned before that I was an Air Force recruiter, and one of the things that we were taught was to ask a lot of effective questions, probing questions, open-ended questions. And, the idea behind that is to get the customer to talk. You don't want to ask questions that are, the answers are just yes or no. You want them to get to talk about what their needs and what their wants are so that we can go ahead and tailor, features and benefits to their needs and wants. So as a consultant is very similar. So, your primary job as a consultant is to understand the client's business needs. And so asking probing questions, listening, effective listening, and getting to really understand what it is that the customer wants so that you can provide, a solution that meets those needs. So I would say the communication for me has been, extremely, important and something that I have carried over into my Salesforce career.
I think for me, the drive to succeed was one of the biggest factors for me. And that goes both with, getting certs. The first year I worked at Liberty and Booz, I did more studying that first year than I did in the 4 years I was in college to get my degree to gain the certs, because then I could become a valuable member of the team. And I think that drive to succeed also kind of propels me at what I do specifically within Booz. And without that, I probably wouldn't be as successful and I wouldn't be here today.
I'll add a couple things. Two big things: trust and agile mentality. In terms of trust, I was trained for the care team. So if there was a casualty, I would go alongside another service member and, present that information to another military spouse. Fortunately, I wasn't in a position where I ever had to use that training, but as a military spouse, you have access to confidential information, and being in a position to know that that's information that not everybody else in the world needs to know about. And just in terms of, in the Salesforce world, clients definitely want to trust who it is that they're working with. So that's a big piece. And then agile, before going down this journey, I didn't know what this was or anything. And I remember being interviewed, and I had just kind of looked some stuff up. And I, during the interview, I said, I've basically been doing agile my entire life. I always have a giant list of things I need to get done. That's my to-do. And then I kind of take a couple of those things and put it in my doing. And then I celebrate when it's done. And you have to be incredibly quick to pivot And, if you get PCS orders, but you just signed your kids up for school or whatever. So, there's a list a mile long, but those are definitely two that come to mind.
Anyone else on the panel thoughts on that? I know, I think I echo all of it. Go ahead.
Erica, if you have anything, please go for it. I have some thoughts once you get a chance to go.
You can go first, Alex.
Okay, thanks. Echo certainly everything. Bunch of y'all were like knocking things off my list that I wanted to say. But something that I don't think anybody mentioned necessarily in particular that stands out for me, particularly in the context that we're working in our space that we'll get into a little bit more, but really any Salesforce customer, the beauty of the Salesforce is that it is so agile to Karri's point and so flexible. It's easy to change things on the fly constantly, and you can easily trip up your teammates, trip up yourself, trip up others if you don't coordinate that. And so in the military, we learn to constantly be rehearsing, coordinating, communicating. And so, if you work on any of the branches, anything, you're generally working in some sort of a team context. Particularly, the faster moving platforms, aircraft, ships at sea, things like that. You've got to be really tightly coordinated, and the more tightly coordinated a Salesforce team is, whether it be consulting or in a partner, the more effective you're going to be, the more stable your Salesforce environment and operations are going to be. So I think that military folks have have an advantage in this ecosystem because they've learned to be looking to left and right and making sure that they're, in good coordination with their teammates, hopefully.
I agree. I mean, what I'll add to all that, and they said a lot, but there's so much more too that it's probably going to be hard to say it all here. But for me, I'd say the communication is key. Things that, and being able to play multiple roles. I mean, I think it was said somewhere in the beginning that there are so many different roles that you can have and do and be successful when it comes to a delivery team, an agile delivery team. But the same can be said, what I took from the military is I didn't do one job for very long. It was always, so the ability to pick something up, learn it and go and move on to the next. You're going to PCS here and you're going to do this. Okay, let me learn, let me figure it out. And the same can be said in the Salesforce delivery world. Like one day you may be a project manager but you still need to know Salesforce, and what you know and how you learn it will help you in that role. But another day you may be, a developer, and whatever roles that you've had, if you build on those skills and take that with you, Salesforce knowledge and the roles you play, that's something that I learned in the military. And it's easy, to be flexible. But had it not been for the military, I don't know that I'd be as successful as I am at it today. It becomes ingrained in you.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I favor, and maybe I'm saying that from a biased view, is the military, like everyone has said, you're getting dropped into constant change, right? You're picked up, and it could be in a day, like, hey, I need you to go to this unit and link up with them and work it out. And that is very much the agile mindset and delivery as well, especially when you work remote and you're kind of on your own. I mean, everybody is in meetings. Anyone that's new to this ecosystem, you might think you just sit there and config all day. It's not really true. There's a whole bunch of meetings that you attend that just don't stop. And then there's Slack and there's Teams. And so I think a lot of it is just like, hey, here's the deal. You know what needs to get done. You know what's on the sprint. You got to figure out how to get it done. And, figuring out how to problem solve, right? And there's two sides to that. And I'm actually interested to hear, because we have a whole bunch of difference in experience on here from just our co-hosts. How long do you beat your head against the keyboard to figure something out on your own? right? Because at some point it becomes cost prohibitive. 6 hours later, if you still haven't figured it out, it's probably time to reach out and say, hey, I'm stuck. I've got a blocker. I need help, right? Or do you barrel through it and try and Google the crap out of it and figure it out? There's pluses and minuses to both, but at some point there is a dollar being put on your head that's saying, hey, you need to move on to the next user story. So I'll float that out and see what I see Alex has already got some thoughts. Go ahead, Alex.
Yeah, I think that reminded me of the other thing that I had thought of in that regard was humility. I know I've been humbled more deeply in my time in the military than any other context of my life, other than being a parent, maybe. But you know, it's in this ecosystem that's what the beauty of it is. It's so open and there's so much documentation and resources available. And chances are, if you're not willing to be humble and ask and be like, hey, I can't figure this out, I don't know this, somebody else is probably going to figure it out, you know, and kind of as a team, you know, another partner may figure it out and bypass, you know, like say, hey, we're going to give this partner who was, you know, interacting with the community more and getting answers or things like that. So people who don't want to, like, you know, kind of highlight themselves by, I don't know this, you know, I love to go out and ask questions of our entire team because I learned stuff. Like I can't know everything. Nobody can know everything. And so I think the military helps us, breaks us down, teaches us to be humble, and hopefully raise our hand and say, I'm sorry, I need help. I don't know what to do here. You know, and that's the context that, and so that's something that I think, you know, translates well to the Salesforce ecosystem as well.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think when I first started doing it, it was this, you know, the imposter syndrome is real, right? And so you're like, I need to figure this out, right? They're going to figure out I have no idea what I'm doing. They're going to fire me. And so you kind of sit there but, you know, I think I would actually kind of lean towards asking for help sooner than some of the others that I kind of worked with. And I honestly think that works better. You know, at some point, try and figure it out, but also don't sit there on a blocker. You know, don't suffer in silence, right? Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, just a quick point. I mean, if you think about it, the time you spend figuring something out that you don't know, you're essentially charging the customer for your upskilling, which is, at some point, it becomes unethical. So what I always try to do is I would balance it out. I would say, okay, if I spent 2 hours learning something that I maybe should have already known, I'm going to put that extra 2 hours back into the project later to make up for that. So it's a consideration to take into account. Customers shouldn't have to pay for your upskilling. With my opinion.
What I'll add a little to that, one thing that it's not just at Booz Allen, but I will say here at Booz Allen, we have a lot of groups, you know, you name it, Slack group, Teams group, you know, of all many. And so there's no reason here to struggle with anything for long. And everybody here has been so willing to jump in and help. I've never, you know, I see a question get posted out on Slack and, you know, there's probably 5 answers in a matter of minutes. And I think the same is in the Salesforce community. I mean, I'm a part of different LinkedIn groups. You put something out there, you ask a question, like that's what's so good about, I think, Salesforce in the community is that everybody's so willing to help. Nobody wants anybody to struggle. And the same could be said inside of the Booz Allen walls.
I think the other thing I've noticed about the ecosystem, which is especially coming from the military, where if you ask a question in the military, it could be like, hey, how do I cure cancer? Someone might tell you you're an idiot, right? And I don't mean that in a bad way, but the military can be a harsh place to learn. And the ecosystem is not like that. It is exactly the opposite. If you ask someone the dumbest question in the world, like, how do I make a field? Someone will immediately pop on there and be like, hey, try this, blah, blah, blah. Here's a help.salesforce.com on how to do it. It's impressive how nurturing the ecosystem is, for an odd word. So in our ongoing partner spotlight series, we've exposed several smaller firms as we've done the show over the last couple of weeks, and the types of projects and clients that they typically work with. From the co-host, could you share an overview of Booz Allen's portfolio with us with respect to size, type, and industry of Salesforce projects?
Yeah, we can love to do that. Thank you. So we at Liberty IT Solutions, we serve primarily the Department of Veterans Affairs, and Booz Allen also had significant work there. So we are continuing that now that we're a joined entity, and there's a tremendous amount of work there. Some of which we could share later. There's stories, videos on YouTube about some of the work we've done, such as Squares and VA Health Connect and some other things. But many stories there that we could go into, offline perhaps in other conversations. And that work is going to continue. That's where most of the folks here are working right now. And Booz Allen, of course, has presence or work in most of the federal agencies across the federal public sector. So there's some ongoing projects in some of those DoD and other places that we're continuing to support and getting more involved in as the team that came over from Liberty IT Solutions, and then getting into some new accounts with Salesforce work, not necessarily new to Booz Allen, but starting to kind of spread the knowledge and the experience that we have from the VA into those other agencies. So that's the quick overview. Anything you wanted to add to that, Erica?
Yes, it's definitely growing. So that's the good thing about what we do and being here at Booz Allen, is that VA is our primary customer, but we are growing outside of that. We know, and we're helping and supporting in an Army account, you name it. It's, we're helping. And that's what I think is great about what Alex and I and our teams are doing here, is that Booz Allen has said, hey, you guys are doing a great job at the VA. So now we want you to come here to Booz Allen and help us grow in other markets and accounts that will help other services, other DoD. So it's kind of great to be a part of that, to be helping and grow the Salesforce ecosystem, but also helping other veterans and other services and things like that. So there's almost too much there is too much. We can't. I think that's what we can't tell you all of it, because we don't. There's a lot, which is good.
That's good, and I think that's helpful to hear for people coming in the ecosystem. Right? There's some not great news out there in the IT sector right now. Obviously, there's been some layoffs that are publicly out there for Salesforce, right? And I think anyone coming in the ecosystem, if I was coming in the ecosystem, I'd be a little nervous about that right now, right? Like, oh, all of this talent is going to filter out of the mothership and take every job available. And I don't think that is, and I'm definitely interested to hear from the panel if you're seeing that at all. I mean, yes, there is some great talent out there, but that talent, I think, is so specialized and so niche that a lot of time is being picked up into individual positions. And I do not think the work is going away. So interesting to hear the mothership. Yeah, that's probably not the most appropriate term for it, but everyone kind of knows what it is. But yeah, anyone in the panel have thoughts on that, about any of the down slump in IT or in workload for any of the partners, or particularly Booz? Erica, Alex, I'll probably float that to you.
Not in our world. We got lots of things going on. So there's the ebb and flow in the public sector, particularly the federal public sector, is definitely different business cycle, and so it tends to be somewhat decoupled from the broader commercial private sector market fluctuations. So it's it's different, just there's other factors, and it's great that we're especially part of Booz Allen Hamilton. We have a great diversity of customers now across the federal public sector that we have the opportunity to serve, and so far the outlook is very good for us.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't mean
fortunate.
to put you guys on the spot at all, and obviously what you can answer, but go ahead, Erica.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I feel very fortunate to be where I am and what we're doing. We are fortunate here to have the work that we have, and supporting who we do, because they need us just as much as we need them. So, but definitely know what's going on outside of Booz Allen. And we try to do our best too of keeping our ears and eyes and email boxes open to help those that we can.
If I could say also, just in terms of since we're touched on the macroeconomic, macro ecosystem story, I've been working with Salesforce since before, the 08-09 period and things like that. And, Salesforce has stayed strong through a lot of ups and downs, and especially with the diverse product portfolio that Salesforce has now, that continues to be invested in, expanded. I don't know if we'll get into the differentiation with GovCloud and FedRAMP and things like that. And so not even all of Salesforce's product portfolio is something we can even work with in the federal public sector yet. So there's a lot more, opportunities. More of those things become FedRAMPed or accessible to us. So it's the long. For me, I'm in the long game, as I tell a lot of people, and the long horizon looks good. And the skills, you learn, they're, technology is going to change and evolve. And, one of the things I really appreciate about Salesforce is they stay very current with trends in the technology industry, and you're not learning niche stuff that you can't translate to other things. You're working in web pages, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, Java family code, APIs. These are universal languages. So you're not learning some niche tools that you can't take anywhere else. So overall, yes, I understand the apprehension perhaps, but you should take courage that it's a worthwhile investment in your career and your future. So.
Yeah, we got a question from Iris, but before we get that one, I think there's publicly 250,000 customers out there of Salesforce, and those licenses get renewed, and those Salesforce is embedded in their business process, right? The need for work as admins and config and devs is there, and it's not going away just because of layoffs in the industry. That workforce, that work is still out there, right, and still needs to be done. So anyone coming into the ecosystem, don't give up hope. It is not come to an end. So I just want to put that out there and kind of help dissuade that. So Iris asked,
David, I think Elio had his hand raised as well.
Sorry, Elio, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, David. Just a quick comment that I think we talked about this before. Some of us that were impacted by the layoffs are not going to be applying for the same role as somebody that's coming in, right? I have 25 years in the industry. I'm sure the folks that are transitioning are not going for senior director or VP roles, right? So my point there is there's a lot of opportunity at every level. And I think whether the market has a correction like it's doing now in tech or it's booming, you have to always focus on your pitch, your delivery, your value add to whatever role you're going to apply. So that to me should be the focus of anybody that's trying to get into the ecosystem, whether you're networking, whether you're listening to this awesome panel on their journey. You need to take that in and just think about how you are going to differentiate yourself against anybody else when you're applying to an individual role. Macroeconomic things happen. The current state is not as bad as it was in 2008 and 2009. I can tell you that one was really tough. There were absolutely no technical roles for a good 7-8 months. It was very challenging, especially in the Austin area. Today, the Austin area is a tech hub. So 10 years, 12 years later, there's a lot of opportunity like in the area where I'm at. And I could tell you that it's still the same thing. Are you networking? Are you talking to people in the industry? Are you doing your informational interviews? Are you learning about the roles that you want to apply for and how to present yourself? That to me is what really matters. Every industry is going to have ups and downs. Tech is absolutely no different. Can you have a successful career in the long term in tech? Absolutely. I'm an example. I've been in tech for 25 years and I wouldn't want to be anywhere else. And I just wanted to share that thought.
No, that's really good to hear. And I think that's perfect for the audience we have, right, to hear that kind of stuff. Because I know if I was coming into the industry right now, I'd just be terrified. Like, okay, there's going to be no jobs. Everything's drying up. Back to the military for me. I'll be shining boots the rest of my life.
Absolutely not. I actually have been, and a lot of us who've been in the industry, and the folks you know that are coming in, that's why we post the LinkedIn, links to connect with us. For example, every week this year and last year, I post a lot of jobs where people that I know that are hiring for those admin jobs, business analysts, middle managers. If there is an opportunity that you're looking for, connect with folks that are doing that for you, right? Understand how to go about networking. And I hope that's what you are getting out of the panel. I think the panel today is fantastic in sharing what Booz Allen is all about. We have folks here that handle government or clients, right? And some that are not. We didn't have that 15 years ago, right? Or 20 years ago. I started with Salesforce in 2004 as a client of Salesforce, and I could tell you it has ballooned to this awesome ecosystem. And I'd like to hear more from the panel on that regard, on how did you find your way to not only knowing the platform, but your certifications, and what kind of tips can you share for our audience who they are transitioning? I don't want to take over the call. I just wanted to make some comments there, because when I started, there were no certifications, and it was literally, Salesforce, and people kind of just gave you the ownership of the org, which I know the panel here in Booz Allen is like, oh my God, that's like the worst thing you could do. Back in the day, that if people knew that you knew Salesforce, you were just kind of handed the keys to the kingdom. Now that the industry has matured, we have all of these more formal roles and processes and certifications that allow you to really design a career that could be, 1 year you could be doing something completely different than the next. And that's the beauty of what I like about the industry and where we're headed.
Yeah, great points. That actually tees up Iris's question. Adam, did you have a comment before we go to Iris's question? I saw your hand go up.
No, I was trying to emote, hit the wrong button.
I do that about 3 times a day. So Iris asked, and I see a lot of people have already answered in chat, but there's a couple different ways of looking at this. Iris asked, what's the next cert to go after once you finish admin? And so I will bring up kind of 3 points to look at that. I'll tee it up to the crowd here, to our panel. After that, we'll get a quick picture. And then I want to start focusing on really the culture of Booz and really, what you're thinking of the hiring process, kind of that, if you wanted to come into Booz. So I'll tee it up, but I'll say first, Iris, I think there's 3 ways to look at that. There's what you want to start to look at and focus on, right? If there's something like, hey, if you're into data, you want to do CRMA, something like that. There is the kind of, I'd say the natural progression, which would probably be platform app builder, to kind of focus on, hey, how do relationships work, fields, how do I build an app? And then I think there's also the points focus, right, from the partnership. Certain certs are worth more points to partners. The consulting ones are generally worth 3 points. App builder is only worth 1. So if you look at it from that perspective, you might want to go to one of the consulting certs, Sales Cloud, Service Cloud. So I'll throw that thing out, or throw that thought process out for the crowd, and I'll turn it over to the panel. What are your thoughts on that?
So
I'll touch. Oh no, go for it, Adam.
I beat you, Karri. So at Booz Allen, when we did our training, our progression was we actually started with platform app builder first. That was the very first cert that we focused on. And I love Platform App Builder. I feel like it gives you a really, really solid foundation. You can do a lot of stuff. But also when you start going into these other certs, things just kind of make sense. You know, if it talks about data relationship, you can sit there and be like, oh yeah. So those are how fields kind of talk to each other, or how a parent and child object interact and that type of stuff. So I think Platform App Builder is like, I love Platform App Builder. I think everybody should get Platform App Builder.
Mhm.
Any other thoughts?
I agree. I agree with Adam. I definitely started with admin, and that was primarily because I do feel like admin is the bread and butter, and it's for a lot of other certifications down the road, it's like a requirement or prereq. For myself personally, I do want to have a depth of understanding of the Salesforce platform. And even though there are projects right now that I am on or could be on down the road that won't necessarily, need a sales background, if you're doing Salesforce and you want to know it, you really should, this is my own thinking, should have the sales and the service piece of it. So just like kind of a fast, speedy admin, business analyst, PAB, sales and service. I might be missing something in there. If you want to go and start out with the associates, that's also a good starting point. And then from there, definitely dive in. I will eventually get the sales one. I'm kind of working on some other stuff right now, but I just want a full depth and understanding of the platform altogether.
Can I throw a couple of additional areas? Not so much Salesforce, but
You bet.
items in general. So agile is another term that's being used across the board. I think that's something that's very valuable that people should learn. And another one is, of course, DevOps, like using Capado, Flowsum. There's free training on both of those sites, and Trailhead also has modules on them also. So those two are also good. And I love the business analyst search. I think it's very helpful. And, that is a more recent one. And I got my admin cert way back in 2013. But having the admin and then doing the business analyst, that will help you be able to ask more questions, because you'll kind of have a concept of what Salesforce is, what it can do to help drive those types of questions, instead of being a business analyst not knowing anything about Salesforce, where if you have some sort of knowledge, it'll help ask some additional questions that'll help the solution architect, myself, build something that will be helpful for the business.
Yeah, when I first started working on the VA project, right, you get into DevOps, DevSecOps, and you're like, and you're working with Capado and you're just thrown into it. And it's just, Flowsum, Capado. Someone just asked what were the websites for that. If you look up Capado or Flowsum, FLOSUM, or Dave, if you can spell that out or in the chat for me. Yeah, both those are fantastic and give you an idea of how DevOps works, and it's big learning knowledge. Okay, very quickly, I'd like to we're well past the halfway point. I'd like to get our picture for the day. We'll get a group photo on here, sharing on social media. Always want to be branding, right? We talked about it already. We'll plan on posting on LinkedIn and Twitter tomorrow, and we'll tag everyone in the photo. If you only have your first name showing and you want to include your full name, please type it in the chat. We'll pick up on it and we'll add that in there. And everyone who wants to participate in the photo, go ahead and unmute your video, and I'll grab a screenshot here. I'll give you a quick countdown. Just gotta get my screen set. All right. I always end up looking dumb and staring at the top left of the screen because I'm getting ready for my picture. So I don't think there's a lot to work with here to begin with. All right, here we go. 3, 2, 1. Hey, I'm actually looking at the screen for a change. All right, we got it. Okay, so back to questions. I missed any in chat here?
David, can I just add something real quick?
Yeah, sure.
So I can't. I'm not impartial. I'm very partial to this. I love DevOps because I am a release manager, and I will tell you this: that it is a little known area that a lot of Salesforce people don't get into. It's like the black magic of Salesforce. No one knows how Capado really works. But if you pair Capado certs and training with Salesforce, you are extremely marketable, because not a lot of people like to do it, because it can be kind of painful sometimes. But it's a great skill to have.
Yeah, I did a Capado cert, and I think it helped at least make me stand out a little bit. I really didn't quite know what I was doing with it. You get a little better with it after you break things about 17 times. You start to learn really the hard way. So we got a couple questions. It looks like Brianna had one. I see Iris has one, so I'll hit Iris and I'll come back. Andrew, I see your hand is raised as well. So Iris, on a roll now. What do y'all think of this Chat GPT? Oh, we're opening a can of worms now. And then Andrew, I'll get you, and then Brianna, I'll look for your question. Go ahead, panel. Chat GPT.
I think it's okay as a starting point, but definitely it's not the solution to it. You can't just type into ChatGPT and have it spit out code. It does do that, but it's not optimized. It's not the greatest, but it can be a good starting point to get you kind of going.
Yeah, it spits out code like I spit out code. It's mostly right-ish. Anyone else?
Yeah, we've definitely experimented with it a little bit, just kind of to do some research and see what it can put in. And we're pleasantly surprised with some of the results. But it's quickly apparent that if you don't know the right question to ask, you're not likely to get any sort of an answer that's going to be useful to you. And then you do need to know what to do with the answer that you get. So you can ask it to write you a Lightning Web Component, but if you don't know where to put that after it gives it to you, well, you're not too much further ahead. Maybe it can tell you where to put it after it built it. But and then just a segue into the Booz Allen community and culture. Booz Allen is involved in many different things across our customer base, one of them being artificial intelligence, machine learning, AI, data analytics. And so it's neat to see the broader community discussing that and how they're talking about ethical considerations, legal considerations, all sorts of things that are second, third order effects of ChatGPT and other AI tools that are coming on the marketplace. So it's really been very exciting for me to be in this broader Booz Allen community and be learning about these things, even though it's not something that I'm working with necessarily on my day-to-day responsibilities. So, there's a lot happening right now, but there's a lot of thought leaders even in our organization that we're getting to learn from about it, and how should we think about it, how should we apply it, and use it appropriately in what we're doing.
Yeah, agreed. And like you said, you have to know how to do the code, right? You have to be able to, you just can't have it write code for you and think it's going to be right. There's going to be stuff that you have to spot. You have to look at your own specific integration implementation that you're looking at. So yeah, I don't think it's taken over just yet. Now, when it gets opposable thumbs, I'll probably be the first one running, but I saw a movie about that. Anyway, moving on. So Andrew, you have a question, go ahead.
Hey, yeah. So I'm hearing Adam talk about how he studied more in that one first year than in all of college, and then all these different certs and everything. I'm trying to get a realistic picture of especially the first year and also the Salesforce Academy. How does all this studying happen in terms of working at the job and also getting all these certs along the way? What's a realistic picture?
I had a very understanding wife that let me do that. Legitimately, I was doing the SFA stuff, and this is not an exaggeration. I was probably putting in 14 to 16 hour days with studying, but that was a choice. That was my choice. I never felt pressured to do it, but it was like I just wanted to do it. And so yeah, I was like I just did it. And now that I'm done with that year, I'm taking like the year off. I'm not I'm doing my cert maintenances, and that's basically it.
Yeah, there's a period of time too between the Salesforce Academy and when you get placed on your first project that you have time to study. But typically, I mean, it happened to me. Once I got placed on a project, I had less time to study. So most of the study that I did was in my personal time. But those that are, they call it being on the bench when you're in between Salesforce Academy and your first project. So those definitely have the time to study and get some certifications and, you know, make the best time of that period before you get placed on a project.
So I'll talk a little bit about the Salesforce Academy. I see there's lots of interest there. So let me shed some light and give a few details about that. So I will say the Salesforce Academy program that Booz Allen has created through the help of Alex and a couple, I mean, we need to do this. We need to provide an avenue for people to get into the Salesforce ecosystem and help us build what we need to. So we have a program here. It is 8 to 12 week program where we hire people in, and their job is to be learning, growing, knowing Salesforce. We have instructors from Stony Point. We have people from within Booz Allen who are experts, knowledgeable, come in and also shed light and help teach and promote and help people understand what the Salesforce platform is and does. And the whole goal of the program is when you come out of this program, this may have been your only introduction to Salesforce, but the goal is for you to get a Salesforce certification, admin being one of the routes, and then we do move on to other certs like PAB, which you've heard talked about today. And the goal is to get you certified, but the real goal is when you graduate from the Salesforce Academy that you are able to go on to a project, but know not only how to do configuration, use the Salesforce tool and platform, but also be a part of a project and understand what it means to be a solution engineer or a Salesforce dev, and how to take those requirements that you're going to get from your customers, take that and turn it into code that turns into a tool that is used for various customers. So it's a great program. I know there's lots of companies that do it, but I have to say I think ours is one of the best, and or is the best. As you can see, we have some of the graduates here today, and we are very proud of it. And it is a great way to get great talent into Booz Allen and helps. And yes, the goal is we want you to be certified, and that's what we give that time. It's not because your only job while you're in the Salesforce Academy is to train. And that's what we're expecting. We're giving you all the tools and people and resources you need in order to do that. Now, yes, after you get out of the program, the time is probably a little bit more slim, and it will probably be more. We do still encourage and want people at Booz Allen. We encourage training. It doesn't matter if you're on a billable project. Everybody needs to enhance their skills and knowledge and experience through training, through conferences, things like that. But some of it will be done on your personal time, but you're also afforded some of that time while at work too. You can't keep getting better at what you do if you don't keep training and learning and growing, as I've seen it in the comments. And Booz Allen is supportive of that.
And I think you end up getting a lot of experience from doing the job, but you also kind of have to do a little bit of learning on your own because you're constantly growing. The product is constantly changing. You're constantly running into something that you just don't know, and you have to kind of work it out. I saw Alyssa had a question, but it looks like Adam answered that one, and I've got 2 hands. We're getting a little close to the time. 3. Ivy, go ahead.
My question is, what are the top three characteristics that you are looking for the Salesforce Academy program?
Great question. We are looking for what's the word I'm looking for? It's passion. Sounds kind of silly, but we are looking for people that have that passion, that desire, that motivation, because as we all know, Salesforce is out there for anybody to learn. So if you come into our interview and you're like, well, I've heard of it, to me, it's no, there's so much out there that you can do and learn on your own. That's what we're looking for. Tell us what you've learned. Tell us what you know. Tell us what you've done on your own. We've had people come in for interviews that have said, yeah, I went and got these certs and I built this app and here's what I did. And, that shows self-motivation, shows initiative. It shows the aptitude and willingness to learn on your own. And that's, to me as a hiring manager, that's what I want to see from folks is what are they willing to do on their own and show and bring to the table. And then is there more in there? Is there more in there that we know that this person's got a long runway? Because like we just talked about, our projects, they keep coming. So we need to know that you're going to keep learning and growing along with us and with the projects that we have. So that's what we're looking for when we're looking at our SFA candidates.
Perfect. We're getting a lot of questions in chat. We're getting a lot of questions on the Academy and hiring. I can stay longer. Panel, if you can, more than happy to have you stay and answer some questions. I think Leela Elio had some questions. So Leela, go ahead.
Already someone asked that question, so I got the answer. I'm about to ask you the question about the, Salesforce Academy thing. Yeah. So
Okay.
that's a question. I am done with my Salesforce administrator certification, and I am towards going to my developer certification. So these are the questions. How do you take one person, and how do you, what you are looking for in that person? Yeah.
I will say the landscape is getting more and more competitive. So the more you can differentiate yourself, because again, a lot of what we talked about today, yes, the Salesforce certifications are definitely key, but we're going to be looking for what have you done with those certifications? Is there something to show what you have learned and how you've maybe taken that to the next step? And all of our projects are agile, so those other things are going to help differentiate you. Do you know what agile means, is and does? Do you know what the different roles are? Do you know how those roles play together to actually, because even if you come in and you are the greatest Salesforce developer or solution engineer, you can't do that without all the other roles on the team. So it's knowing what those roles are and how you work together to develop a product that is going to, those types of things will definitely help. Because it is competitive. There's a lot of interest because it's a great program, but those are some of the things we're going to look for.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think there's been some great things said tonight about, Capado, Flowsum, Agile, DevOps, super badges. People have already put their LinkedIn out here. Network, go ask, right? Don't listen to just this 1 hour. Reach out and say, hey, I listened to you last night, or I listened to you a couple nights ago. Interested in getting a Booz. Just that networking connection can go so far. Jamie has a hand up. Go ahead.
Hi, everybody. I just had a question that came up when you were talking about culture with Booz Allen. So this is the question. How does Booz Allen build a positive and supportive business culture with remote workers?
Great topic these days.
I can take that one. In my experience, obviously Booz Allen is a very large organization, so you're not going to know most people, but the Salesforce practice is pretty tight knit. And I think the reason for that is that we rely on each other. Like it was mentioned before, if we get stuck on a technical problem, if we want to, reach out to someone for career advice, everybody is more than willing to help you with those type of questions or guidance. And so I just feel very supported that way, as far as being able to rely on my team members. But again, I can only speak to the Salesforce practice. I can't speak to the larger organizational culture because I I don't really interact with too many of them on a daily basis, whereas with the Salesforce folks, it's pretty constant.
Thank you.
I can speak to that some more, Jamie, real quick. The Booz Allen went through a significant transition with the pandemic. They were, probably more so an office-centric culture or a client location-centric culture before the pandemic. But one of the things that impressed me about them as we were getting integrated was their commitment to their employees and making the extra effort to maintain connection, maintain community through the disruption of the pandemic. And then they published a 200-page book on the future of work right around the time we were joining the company. I didn't take the time to read it all yet, but I skimmed it. It was really great. And, they've continued to invest and be creative and thoughtful about ways to keep everyone connected. We've hired a lot of folks, who are remote first now. And there are a number of offices around the country. And so if you're within 50 miles of a Booz Allen office, you're kind of, assigned to that office to say, hey, we'd like to see you a few days a year. So as a hybrid work arrangement or whatever we call it. But as we talked about earlier, there's these communities across Booz Allen, all kinds of things. There's, a cycling group. There's, a gaming group. There's just all sorts of interest groups and ERGs. The Armed Services Network is obviously very large at Booz Allen. Lots of veterans and military family members that are involved there. And so the organization has done a lot because they know how important that is to the success of the company and the organization. So you get as much out of it as you put into it generally. But there's a tremendous amount of resources that the firm offers to help you do that.
Can I add one thing with that? And I think this is in general with whatever company you're in. We are in this remote world. We don't necessarily need to wait for our business to have a certain program set in place. You as an employee can take initiative. During SFA, I started a Jeopardy study session on Fridays with other teammates who are doing the same certifications. And so I just want to encourage you guys, if you're in a group and you don't know everybody's studying for Platform App Builder, get it on the calendar and just do these things together. We don't necessarily have to wait for a specific program to be set in place for us. So it's, all of this is way more fun to do with other people. So just take initiative and reach out to other people because they're all sitting behind their desks and want somebody to talk to too.
Yeah, agreed. So to be respectful of our panel's time, let's just take two more questions. We've got Celine and Katiana both have raised hands. We'll take those two questions and then we'll start closing up for the evening. How's that sound? Go ahead, Celine.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. I just wanted to ask Erica, because you mentioned, the SSA really sounds like a very supportive program, and it looks like you're being set up for success. I was just wondering, so after the SSA, how do you get introduced into a vertical, or is that like a choice, or how do you get placed into a certain department or team?
Sure. So it can happen a couple of different ways. We have a bunch of different leaders, different projects, and we are constantly getting new projects in, or people are changing, or we want to move people around. And part of what happens during SFA is your skills are being assessed. Like, where are your skills? What are you strong in? And then we try to align that to the projects that we assign folks to, because, if you're a solution engineer, but we have a project where we're looking for a developer, we're not going to go, okay, we're going to stick Celine over there, even though she doesn't know, depth. So it's a little bit of a matching game, but that's a lot of what we do is looking at the skills and matching those to the projects we have available. And again, we have, sometimes people are what Pedro was talking, I think it was Pedro was talking about the bench. But that bench you're not usually waiting for long. And that's when we're going to tell you, hey, if you're sitting here, don't get comfy, because the projects are going to come and we need you to be ready. So those projects come and go, and we are moving people in and out also to give them the right experience on different projects. We don't want to take a whole new team and put people on, a new project. So there are some people that need a change. So we're going to say, okay, you know what? This person's been over here for a little bit. Let's bring in someone new. We'll do some turnover, and we'll have you shadow. Another great thing that we do is have people shadow. Because again, if you've never been on a project, we're going to be like, okay, we're going to put this person on a project, and you've never been on one. It could be daunting, and then that's not really help setting you up for success. So we try a lot of different ways to make sure we're giving the person and the team the best chance at success. And shadowing is one of the ways that we do that also. Does that help?
Great. Thank you, Erica.
Thank you.
And Katiana, the last question of the evening. Bring us home.
Thank you so much. And thank you everyone for your time tonight. I just have a quick question regarding the skill sets that you guys are looking for Salesforce Academy. I have a feeling I have a more distinct background than everyone here, perhaps. I came in more through solutions and then discovered Salesforce through solutions. And so my question is, are you looking for someone with, I guess, more Salesforce expertise as far as the knowledge and the super badges? Or are you also looking for someone with the skill set of the particular track that they're going to? Like, what is the balance between the two of those?
That's a good question. I don't know, when we're looking for folks for SFA or just to join our team in general, it is a balance of the whole person and what they bring to the table, not just, because really, I say this a lot, like we have some people, their background was zookeeper, and you know what, but they learned Salesforce, but just like we're talking about here today, us coming from the military, we bring a certain set of skills. So it's taking a look at that whole person and what our needs are and how to fit those people into those jobs, those skills. So and the same goes when we're looking at SFA candidates. There's no cookie cutter because there's no diversity of thought when you do that. Everybody can't be and look the same, or we're not going to have the best solutions out there. And that's the goal, is we want to build the right and best solutions. And that takes different kinds of people to do that with different skills, different backgrounds.
Thank you.
Can I amplify
Alex,
that,
you have a
Eric?
thought?
Some of the best developers and architects that I know, solution architects, technical architects, are philosophers, language majors, English majors, medical professionals, so the diversity is phenomenal. So that's a great question. What we're looking for, infinite learners, people who are passionate, creative, critical thinkers, people who, want to help, want to solve problem solvers. That's the key. And, I want everybody to grow and become an architect. That's, we can't have too many architects. You might have to be willing to pick up a hammer, once in a while and make some fields and some automation sometimes. But it's really, the Salesforce knowledge is always moving. So, having a bunch of Salesforce knowledge ahead of time coming into Salesforce Academy isn't, we'll teach you that. Certainly for our mid-level and seniors, so I also want to shout out for that. Maybe if you don't get into Salesforce Academy in a cycle that works for your personal timeline, please go, don't give up the pursuit or think about joining us later. We have, a range of roles available. And so
good point.
I'm in the long game. If you become an architect, through a different path and you want to come join our team at some point down the road as an architect, please, keep us in mind. So there's many ways, and even Booz Allen is hiring people across all sorts of roles and clients, and there's other entry points into the firm that you could use your existing skill set from the military or the commercial sector or wherever. And then you could move laterally as you continue to work on your Salesforce career journey on your own. So there's no one way in. There's no like this is the perfect candidate. we want the diversity of experience and background and thought. So,
Adam, last thought.
Yeah, I'm just gonna a real world example of when Erica was saying that basically trying to find the best fit for you is I was in the Navy. I got a degree in software development. I tried to be a Java developer here. I got but I got pitched Salesforce developer, and I went to the Salesforce Academy as a developer, got assigned to a project, did that for 3 days, decided I wanted to be release management, and now I'm a release manager. Like it's there are a lot of opportunities, and it is really just to find the best fit for you and your skill sets.
It's really nice that you can pivot like that too. It's refreshing, right? You're not trapped.
Yeah, that was all in a matter of a year. Got like whiplash from how much change I got.
Yeah, I'm sure. So we went a little long tonight, but I think we answered a lot of questions, and really, I think a lot of interest in Booz. So before we close, I'd like to actually say a huge congratulations to Alex Sutherland for being, in the MVP Hall of Fame there for Salesforce. That's no small thing there. So congratulations.
Thank you. It just means they've been around too long, and it's time for me to make room for the next crop. So I hope some of the folks here, step up and do even better than us OGs MVP folks.
No, that's very cool, and very cool to have you here. So I also like to thank Erica, Adam, Pedro, Lisa, Karri, all for co-hosting tonight's session. It's been awesome having all of you here and hearing your different perspectives and topics that we've discussed. So thank you all for joining, and thank you all for staying a little long and answering some more questions. With that, I'd like to say thank you all for attending. I hope to see you next week, and have a great Wednesday night.
Thank
Take
you,
care.
David. Thank you, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.